Alright, everybody, welcome back to That's Just My Opinion. I am Merlin, and today we will be discussing Shadow and Bone by Lee Bardot. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the last name. So, if you guys aren't aware, this is now a Netflix original series, Shadow and Bone, and like with Bridgerton, I saw the show first, found out it was based on a series of books, and decided to give the books a listen to. So, like with Bridgerton, I'm mostly going to talk about the book. I will talk a little bit about the show and the book comparatively at the end. So here we go, getting into synopsis for the book, Shadow and Bone. This follows Alina Starkov, a young cartographer in the Ravkin military, as she goes and has some misadventures, shall we say. It starts with her getting ready to cross the Fold, or the Unsea, as it is called, which is this giant, shadow wall that is splitting Ravka in two, and while you can cross it, it is full of nightmare demon creatures called Volcra that will nom on you, so it's very dangerous to cross. But she and her best friend Mal are in the next group of soldiers who are going across to do a supply run, hunting trips. They need to get across. So we get Alina, and you get her relationship with Mal, who you find out that they grew up in the same orphanage together. And she's definitely got feelings for him, but he's kind of become a bit of a hotshot tracker in the military. He's definitely kind of found his place. So Alina's, alright, do I have the guts to tell him I like him? Not really. I don't want to risk screwing up our relationship. So they are off to go through the Fold. They travel through the Fold, and guess what? You find out that Alina's got magic powers. She is what is known as a Grisha. Grisha they say they study the small sciences, but they're kind of magic at the same time. They're kind of witches, but don't call them witches. That's insulting. So there are several different kinds of Grisha. There are the Corporalic, who do body manipulations. They're healers or heart renders. There's also tailors, they're a really small subset of that. There is the Materialics, who are metal workers, manipulators. They can do stuff with actual physical materials. And there are, it's the Elementary, it's something elemental. I'm even kind of rocking a bit of a kefta. It's not exact, but hey, it was what I had in my closet. That they control elements. There are Squallers, Tide Makers, and Inferni, who control air, water, and fire, respectively. You get some cool stuff later on when she's learning things about how it works and how they don't actually make things, they manipulate. It's pretty cool. And there is also another kind of special, they're summoners, called the Shadow Summoner, or the Darkling, who's head of all of the Grisha, and he can manipulate shadows. And way back in history, a crazy Shadow Summoner created the Fold, and according to legend, there is one who can destroy the Fold, the Sun Summoner, one who can summon sun and light and manipulate light. Well, you find out that, of course, Alina, she's one of them. She's the Sun Summoner. So as soon as they find this out, they whoosh her ass back to Ravka, to the little palace, which is kind of like the Grisha training school. It's very similar to Jedi, that Grisha are supposed to be tested when they're really young, and then taken to the little palace to be trained and to learn how to use their powers and eventually join military service. So yeah, she gets dropped off there. She gets presented to the king and the queen, and there's a little bit of politicking, and you start seeing the hierarchy of Grisha. She makes really good friends with a woman named Jenya, who is a tailor. So her whole thing is she can change the appearance of things for a couple of days. And Jenya, I think, is a really fascinating character. She is a Grisha without a color. Each type of Grisha has a different color that they wear. The Materialics wear purple, the Corporalics wear red, and then the Elementers, I can't remember their name. The Elemental people wear blue. It's a darker blue than this. And she is actually a servant. She only wears white, so she's kind of outside of the Grisha order, and that makes her very fascinating. So she and Elena kind of formed friendship. Elena's you know, trying to get a hang of her powers. There's this old woman, Bagra, who is like really trying to beat the powers into her and like trying to get her to understand and use her powers. You've got the Darkling in the background who's like telling Bagra to back off. Things go down. Eventually you find out that, of course, and this is where we're getting into major spoilers here, folks, that the Darkling is not a good guy, that he is a bad guy, and that he is not just a descendant of the Darkling that created the Fold. No, he is the Darkling that created the Fold. Elena goes on the run, she runs in with Mal. They have some very eye-rolly teenage romance shenanigans that happen with them. They end up going after this magical stag that will like basically give you a massive power-up. So Elena, they try to go kill it, but Elena, you know, gets to the moment and she decides she can't do it. She's gonna leave the stag alone. But of course, the Darkling shows up. He kills the stag and he makes a necklace for Elena that is of the antlers of the stag, that she can't take it off. And because the Darkling is the one that killed the stag, he's the one that controls the power, so he can basically hijack Elena's powers and use her to do whatever he wants. Basically, his whole plan is, now that he's got his Sun Summoner to control the Volcra, those evil demon creatures that exist within the Fold, he can now control them with Elena's sunlight, and he can expand the Fold to do whatever he wants and take over everything, because of course! So, he's doing that. Climactic confrontation at the end. Elena and Mal escape, and they are going to try to get her powers worked up until she can, you know, go back and try to destroy the Fold and, you know, take out Kerrigan, because he's left to, or the Darkling, sorry, little show bleed over there. He is left to die in the Fold. Yeah. He ain't dead until you see the body, hun. So, yeah, that's basically how the show goes, or how the book goes. The characters, I mean, Elena's a little by the number. She's your quippy, you know, kind of a smart aleck, and sometimes, you know, her mouth gets her into trouble sort of character, which, I mean, it's okay. Mal is your hotshot who, you know, he's found his place in the world, but now, oh, wait. When Elena goes away, he realizes that he was always in love with her. And that's where it gets into some really eye-rolly, like, teenage romance stuff, which, oof, it was a little rough when it's just like, I knew I would always wait for him. I'm like, oh boy. Also, this is where I'm gonna start getting into some differences with the show and the books. One of the things that in the show, they removed a lot of Elena's, like, snarkiness, which I think is fair because we've seen the snarky protagonist a bajillion freaking times. They also made her half Shu, which is another ethnicity in this world, kind of an Asian coded society, which I thought was a really cool, interesting change on her character, which I thought was a fun change. I thought it was really nice to see that. I mean, it was a cool change. I liked it. They also kind of downplay Elena and Mal's romantic interest in each other in the first season. Like, it's still there. Like, maybe they'll get together in season 2, but by the end of season 1, you can still feasibly say that they're just friends. The other big difference is the Darkling. He's actually given a name in the show, which I really, really like. His name is General Kerrigan. Also, his first name you find out is Alexander. So yeah, Kerrigan in the book, he's only ever referred to as the Darkling. That's what everyone calls him. In the show, you kind of get the implication that calling him the Darkling is not a good thing, that you definitely don't want to get caught in his presence calling him Darkling, that he's General Kerrigan. I also think the show does a better job of making him more three-dimensional, because I can tell you this, in the first book, man, that dude is flat. I mean, a light breeze could knock him over with how flat, one-dimensional, villainous he is. The other thing I'd like to talk about is the relationship between Elena and Kerrigan. In the show, I really like the way they did it, where yes, they definitely get some feels for each other, and it feels reciprocated on both ends, that like Elena's like, oh, you know, this powerful man who's found me, you know, appealing and attractive, and she's definitely attracted to him, and I'm like, good on you. And Kerrigan, who's definitely into her, because, you know, they're both individuals, they're both uniques, there's no one else like them, and they almost, but don't quite hook up. So I liked that. I thought it was much more interesting written than in the book, where in the book it feels like whenever Kiergan, or the Darkling, I should say for the book, pushes something romantic on her, either a kiss or whatever, it feels like he is doing that just to try and, like, distract her. To try and, you know, just distract her, and, like, it's always whenever she's about to ask, like, a question about something that he's like, oh, no, mwah, smooch, no, don't think about that, yeah. But as far as major plot beats, it goes down really similarly. The one thing that is not in the books is our Crow crew. We do not have Kaz and Jesper and Inej. No, they are not in book 1 at all. They come from a separate series called the Six of Crows series. So I was really surprised by that, but I'm really glad that they added them. Also, the Heartrender girl in the book with her Fjerdan guy, that's also not in this book at all. That's all. The book is told from first person, from Elena's perspective, so if you watch the show and there's a scene that doesn't involve Elena, she did not see it happen. That is not in the book at all. So I think it's really cool how they cut Kaz and the Crows into the show, because from what I've heard, the way that the Crow story goes down in the show is kind of like a prequel for their actual story. So I'm very interested to see how that, because as far as the show goes, I was in it for the Crows. Like, Elena's story is the stuff of legends, but I was in it for the Crows. Just the Elena Chosen One storyline, I feel like we've seen it so many times that it was just kind of for me. I loved watching the Crows. It's kind of just your typical heist thing. You like seeing a complicated plan come together, and when things go wrong, how they adapt. But I'm still interested in it. When season 2 comes out, I'll definitely watch it. I might pick up book 2 then when season 2 comes out. Same thing like I said I would do with Bridgerton, is when season 2 comes out, I'll probably listen to book 2. I'll be curious to see how the show continues to interweave these plots together. I might listen to Six of Crows before then. I'm not sure, because I know the way the books are is like you're supposed to read basically the Elena trilogy first, and then there's the Six of Crows duology. So I'm a little nervous to read it out of order because I don't want spoilers, so gonna have to figure that out. But as far as the book Shadow and Bones goes, I give it like a 3.75 to a 4. It's good. It's actually pretty enjoyable YA fantasy. I'm usually not as big of a fan on YA, especially when there's like romantic YA, because it usually gets pretty eye-rolly. But I still think it's a interesting, well-written story. I think it's very enjoyable, and if it sounds like something that's up your alley, I'd definitely give it a read. But hey, that's just my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's totally cool. And if there's something you'd like to see me take a crack at in particular in the future, leave your comments down below, and I will talk to you guys in a little while.